Regular show. It's anything but.
Regular show had an amazing finale. A 3-parter jam-packed with fights in space, Dragon Ball Easter eggs, time travel, and more. And in this video, I'm going to cover every last bit of Regular Show's phenomenal finale. So stay tuned. I'll give a little context before I actually go in depth into the actual episodes. So if you want to skip to that part, it's on the screen. But first of all, you must understand that Pops is scheduled to fight his brother, Anti-Pops, with the fate of the universe at stake. A few episodes prior to them meeting, he meets the SEER, which is something taken straight out of the Matrix. This was cool how the SEER used her knowledge of the guys to bring the viewers' memories, up to code, and it doubles as a crash course for the whole series, so it works for those who forgot it and those who just didn't see the beginning of Regular Show. So it works really well in setting the tone for the ultimate finale that they got coming up in a few episodes. It's also in this episode that the SEER plants the idea in everyone's head that doing something different could make all the difference.
Sometimes doing something different makes all the difference.
So just remember that little piece of advice and keep it in your back pocket. Doing something different can make all the difference. And so just like that, the episode ends and the crew heads to Lollyland. The episode right before the finale is very calm, it's very jarring. It's like the calm before the storm. Pops has to fight Anti-Pops in less than 24 hours. Mordecai, Rigby, and the others do their best to keep his spirits up before the end of their lives, essentially. This episode feels very jarring though. It's quite a sight to see just how far Regular Show has come. Everything is revolving around Pops, and it's so strange and surreal to see how Mordecai and Rigby aren't the central focus of the series anymore. It's odd just seeing Mordecai as a side character, And it's not just that, but even things like Pops' accent has changed over the course of the series. Just listen to a clip of how he sounded in the beginning versus how he sounds in this episode.
Pops. Oh, and boys, do be careful. I think they might cause brain tumors. And I don't care what happens to me, but I don't want any of you to get hurt. You're my best friends.
It's something subtle, but I like to look at it as a positive, almost like Pops' character development. When you're around certain people for long periods of time, you tend to start speaking like them. It's a great, really subtle way to establish Pops' character development throughout the entirety of the series. But anyway, Mordecai gets the idea to plant a time capsule so their lives can be immortalized, and so they could all have their lives, everything, every single episode in Regular Show leading up to this point, copied into a Blu-ray box set, and keep this tucked away in your back pocket. This was the reason that I wanted to cover these 2 episodes first, because it's very important for the final episode of the series. The time has come. A regular epic final battle, part 1. This episode kicks off the finale, and it starts off with a bang. Pops is flying through the universe and he catches a 2B pencil before his brother comes in and crushes him with his death grip. It's very symbolic of the yin-yang relationship between the two of them, but also in the sense that Pops has the pencil. He can write his own story or make edits to where in previous universes they didn't. Remember what the SEER told him. Eventually, Pops and his gang pull up to Lollyland to prepare for their biggest op yet, and they get help from Lollylanders, or just what looks to be like rough drafts of Pops before they were actually used, which they do actually point out later in the episode that they were just part of the evolution that led to Pops. They end up bringing Pops and the guys and Eileen to the Guardian of Lollyland and ask for advice on how to beat Anti-Pops, but she has no freaking clue. It's just an ongoing battle that ends with the universe resetting every single freaking time, and the only thing that survives each time is Lollyland, which kinda doesn't really make sense, but I mean, okay. There's also one small detail here, and it's that Anti-Pops still hasn't showed up. The Guardian says he's usually early. I say this is already a clue that the fight will have a different outcome though. Anti-Pops and his gang head there, and this guy looks like he could be one of Frieza's minions. He also has on a scouter, just like the ones you see in Dragon Ball. This is actually one of the biggest reasons I wanted to cover this episode specifically. There are lots of Dragon Ball Easter eggs in this episode, just this whole 3-parter. Not only are there a lot of anime references in regular show, but this episode alone has to take the cake for the most amount, at the very least, Dragon Ball references. And it's very intentional, and you'll see why later on. This guy is just the tip of the iceberg. In the very next scene, in the Hall of Tapestries, you can see auras around Pops and Anti-Pops in the background. It's straight out of the fight with Vegeta. They're literally doing a Kamehameha in this frame. That's straight out of Gohan versus Cell. But that's not even all, y'all. The explanation given about Pops or Mega Cranus creation as the good half and Anti-Pops as Malum Cranus as the bad half, that draws massive parallels to Kami and Piccolo being two halves of the same coin, from Dragon Ball, or even in GT where the Dragon Balls had minus and plus energy stored within them to balance out the wishes. It's all very, very similar to Dragon Ball, but I digress. It's in the Hall of Tapestries that the objective becomes very, very clear to the gang. If they want to win, something has to change, and so they do their best to make that happen. They set traps, plan sneak attacks, all this stuff, and as the tension reaches a boiling point, Anti-Pops arrives, and after all that trouble they went through of making all these sneak attacks and all this other stuff, none of it works. None of it works in the freaking slightest. Anti-Pops just shrugs it off like nothing, and that closes out part 1. Anti-Pops wants to do away with all the interference. He wants to go one-on-one with his brother, and so they agree to fight each other one-on-one, and so just like that, the fate of the universe hangs in the balance. Now, where have you heard something like that before? The shirts come off and the battle begins. Mordecai and Rigby try to jump in and help their boy, but you got Skip spouting stock Dragon Ball lines like, "No, don't go in, he's not ready." As the fight just escalates, "No, this is his fight." Like, man, what are you doing? What are you doing? This is for the fate of the universe. The fight escalated pretty quickly. You had matter manipulation, flying, Anti-Pops spamming Ki Blast like he's Vegeta or something. Pops manages to knock down Anti-Pops and get the win, seemingly. But of course, his brother's a sore loser, kinda like Goku's brother. So from here on out, things get insane. Reinforcements arrive from out the freaking wazoo. From both sides arrive, and this goes from a casual battle to an all-out war. And in Anti-Pops' defense, Pops did sneak attack him, even though he had reservations of doing so. Party Horse arrives in a similar looking pod to Vegeta. And at one point, the baby ducks even transformed, and everyone just watched.
Nah, I want to see what their final form looks like.
It's almost like the creators watched Goku vs. Vegeta and Goku vs. Frieza and just decided to make an episode off of it. It's amazing. Pops eventually gets the best of Anti-Pops again, knocking him over the top of the Coliseum. But Anti-Pops rises, looking a little different and yet so familiar. He comes back up in Vegeta's armor. Well, that explains why Vegeta doesn't have shoulder pads after Namek. This is where things get out of hand. Anti-Pops proceeds to erase everything in sight. He straight claps the whole planet, all the while laughing like a maniac. There's also a funny line where Anti-Pops kinda calls Muscle Man a bitch. Have a listen.
Any last words, bitch?
But more importantly, this scene established that anyone can die. No one is safe, not even the main characters. Muscle Man and Fives get clapped mid-trash talk, and then right after Anti-Pops kills him, Pops transforms like he's Goku on Namek. I mean, just look at this visual. On one side, you got Pops, aka Goku, and on the other side, you got Anti-Pops playing the role of Vegeta. They must have seen episodes 28 through 35 of Z or something. It's amazing how almost no one on the internet that I've searched for this episode ever talks about this. It's right there in front of you. And just like that, everybody say hello to Super Pops. But even in this new state, Super Pop still has reservations of killing his own brother. The pivot from a war movie to a horror movie is complete. The brothers get into a beam struggle that ends up erasing nearly everyone, except of course Mordecai and Rigby, so I guess they still have main character plot armor. It really reminds me of Majin Buu destroying the Earth. It's just everything just falls apart at this point. Eventually though, Super Pops and Anti-Pops charge at each other and clash fists, and the universe resets. But not before Mordecai and Rigby could sacrifice themselves. It's a stretch, but Mordecai and Rigby even get shot into the past after coming face to face with death. This same thing happened to Bardock in episode of Bardock. That might just be a coincidence though, so don't even think about it. Nonetheless, Mordecai and Rigby relived the first part of the episode, The Power. The first episode of regular show. And it's not until that point that Rigby realizes something is off. It's strange that he realized that something was off at that point. I mean, wouldn't he have memories in universe of his life prior to that point? But I mean, I guess if you really want to fudge it, you could say they didn't really make the Blu-ray time capsule until they actually got to the park. So wouldn't it make more sense to have them start out with the pilot episode? But if so, how far apart in universe is The Power to the pilot episode? That could mean that they've been living in a simulation for maybe up to a year and no one even knows. But anyway, Rigby realizes he's already done this before, and that's when it clicks. Rigby shows Mordecai the Blu-ray time capsule they buried, and once Mordecai touches it, he finally remembers too. It's also a nice touch that Mordecai and Rigby got a taste of what their friends felt in the episode Exit 9B, when all of them lost their memories. That's a nice callback if it was intentional. Because they're in the episode The Power, Mordecai and Rigby use the piano that Rigby stole from a wizard while he was taking a piss to literally take them to the end. Once they return to the fight though, they immediately get clapped and Anti-Pops destroys The Power and Lollyland. Yo, Anti-Pops was going crazy. He knocked Pops into one of the most trippiest scenes in cartoon history. Seriously, this scene is up there with Mississippi Queen. Pops actually sees his origins, that being the naive man from Lollyland, the short animation J.G. Quintel made in college. Pops eventually busts out of this realm, only to find that the universe is imploding right before him. Sticky notes and storyboards engulf everyone. And in the words of Anti-Pops, the fabric of reality is unraveling. That's an awesome line. Just when all seems hopeless, Pops begins to teleport like Goku again with the Dragon Ball references, and he gets Mordecai and Rigby to safety out of harm's way. Then, Pops pays the ultimate price. Pops sacrifices himself and his brother to save the universe. Even his sacrifice was Goku-esque. Remember Raditz? Remember Cell? There's gotta be some Avatar in there as well, you know, solving things without violence, or without the ending you'd expect. He and his brother explode in a star. That sounds wrong. I could phrase that a little differently. Pops embraces his brother and they explode together in a star. Hold on, one more time. Pops and his brother explode with a star. So with the universe saved, all the characters go on about their lives and reunite after 25 years for good old time's sake. Then VHS tape pops out in what looks to be heaven. It's very symbolic of the end of this series. All the 80s references and all that stuff wrapped into one beautiful ending. Regular show's finale gets its message across. In order to make a difference, you have to do something different. You gotta think outside the box. Be creative. And that's what makes regular show's finale phenomenal. Regular show's finale is also in a way symbolic of something else. This was the beginning of the end of one of Cartoon Network's greatest eras, the 2010s. There are lots of Easter eggs in regular show, from the 80s references, the movies references, the pop culture, and everything in between. And I plan on covering them in the future. I'll start with the 80s references, and make my way from there. In the meantime, y'all can comment down below, what were some of y'all favorite moments from regular show, and what moments would you want me to cover? What do you like to see? What was your favorite part of regular show? Who are your favorite characters? What was your favorite episode? Let me know in the comments, but also remember, in the meantime, you can check out more of my phenomenal videos and my phenomenal channel. I'll see y'all on the next one.